Um, how many of you have watched the last showing in the Marvel series called Endgame? I say that because at the end of last year, we found out that there was going to be something that was going to break barriers. £1 billion worth of takings in one weekend. Amazing. But I want you to reflect, as we think about the future, on Tony Stark and his computer, Jarvis. The relationship between what we're seeing out there in the real world and the digital world, and how all of that is coming together. You see, the digital age, the physical age, the biological age, what it means to be a human and what it means to react with the world is changing every single day. So as I think about Stark and I think about Jarvis, I think about what the future boardroom will look like. I want you to consider what governance is, because I get tingly about governance. I want you to consider that even in a school, we need governance. If I was in an NHS trust, a hospital, I need governance. If I was in a large corporate environment, I need governance. If I was in a small charity or a large charity, dare I say it, even in my home, I need governance. I don't know if I'm the chair or the chief executive, or it's my wife, and the boys are on the board. It was in the early 90s that Sir Adrian Cadbury said, corporate governance is the system by which companies are directed and controlled. And I start with that because he talks about systems. The system we need for good governance is the system of having a good board. A number of people, 5, 3 in a small organisation, 10 or 12 in a large organisation. But what will the future boardroom look like? How will we merge this Jarvis supercomputer that even has something that he puts in the centre of his chest to start to look at this clear energy and to fuel all of that information? How does this all fit together? You see, sometimes I reflect on the challenges that organisations face. And I want you to help me here, because if I was to talk to you about innovation, disruption and opportunity, and I was to say to you that there's a sector that if they knew what was going to happen to them with taxes, they would have changed dramatically their businesses. So what might I be talking about when I say it's been disrupted? If I said taxes, you say it must be Uber. What if I said to you about the hotel sector or accommodation sector, and I said that was disrupted, but there was an opportunity? You might say Airbnb. If I was to say to you about Kodak and how they didn't get up to understand what's happening now, it's now a digital age. Do you get what I'm saying? We've got to think about what the future holds, because if we don't, we're going to be distinct. Now, I want you to understand that corporate governance isn't a subject that people think affects their everyday lives. But I want you to also understand that if we think into the future and we think about what's happening, it was Professor Klaus, who is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, who wrote the book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. And in this book, he tried to describe what it's going to be like in this new generation. We know about the first generation, we know about agrarian, and we know about agriculture. We know that the steam engines came. We know about manufacturing. We know that the digital economy came. The internet changed the world. Because whenever we get a revolution, society changes. Economics changes. Politics changes. The way we live and the way we behave changes. So in this fourth industrial revolution, we're going to see change. We know about virtual reality. We know about the Internet of Things. We know about 3D printing. We know about all of these different changes, but how do they impact us? Well, I want to tell you about VCAS. Not VUCA. Some people think VUCA is me spelling VCAS wrong. VUCA talks about volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But I want to end today to tell you about VCAS. Can you all say VCAS? So before that, we think about the generations and we think about the challenges. You see, the challenges we have are that the generations are changing. The baby boomers are starting to retire. The Generation X people are not going to be redundant, they're going to be irrelevant in this new world. And Generation Y and Z are going to be taking over the next 10 years. So what does the future boardroom look like? How can we see the changes to that demographic? You see, I did some research recently with a program called the Effective Board Member Program. And the effective board members train people how to go onto boards and be effective in the boardroom. And we have various cohorts. We have young people, we have women, we have sports people, athletes, and we have CEOs. And what was really unique was being able to bring all of them together and ask them this one question: what do you think is going to impact the future boardroom the most in the next 10 years? And guess what was at the top of the list? Nearly everybody said the same thing: technology. The use of technology, embracing technology, and making sure we're able to understand the technology. So, incidentally, number 2 on the list was looking at ethical trading and sustainability, and number 3 on the list was diversity. Diversity of people, diversity of thinking, age, gender, ethnicity, but that's for another day. So let me finish off with VCAS in our conclusion. You see, the future boardroom is going to look like this. It's going to be V for virtual. Can you imagine going to a boardroom meeting? And I had a boardroom meeting just this week where we Skyped someone in. The 3 of us were in the boardroom and a couple of them were on Skype, and we could have the meeting. It was though they were in the room. But I can see a hologram coming into the room and people coming from various places and us having a board meeting all together. I can see information changing in the future boardroom. So we've got access information through computers, through technology, so that we can make decisions almost remotely. That was the I. The C is about communication, being able to communicate with the chief executive, with the executive officers, as we're in the room, as we're making decisions. And the A is about analysis. Can you imagine your very own robotics, your very own Siri, in your computer on your head as you're trying to analyze the information, understand early warning signals, understand what the performance indicators are, all at the same time. And then the S is about security, because we're going to need, from the cyber risk, from all the challenges of data, we're going to need to make it secure. So I started by talking about Endgame and Avengers. I started by telling you about where I see the future is. I started by getting you to understand that I think the future boardroom actually is closer than we think. And you say VCAS. VCAS is where it's at. Thank you.